Welcome everybody to tonight's webinar. We are going to discuss winter feeding and the two products, oil and bloom. They kind of go along with this topic. Now, I know that for most of you, it's still pretty warm where you are, but it will get cold and we can't wait till it's cold to think about winter feeding. We have to be proactive in our approach. So now is really the time to get on top of what we need to be talking with our clients about over the winter. So we want to talk about digestive function, energy requirements, they really do change, fiber requirements, water requirements, really critical, and then we'll chit chat about the oil and bloom. So you've seen this slide over and over again, but I really come back to this every time I talk about horses because it kind of sets the stage for everything else that we'll talk about. You know, horses are designed to eat a wide variety of forages. They nibble, they eat off the ground, they're herd animals. Eating off the ground increases drainage of the respiratory tract, chewing time, prevents muscular tension in the neck and back. It's endless. And I actually just recently saw some some more recent research published. There was an article in thehorse.com talking about the research about when you're hanging hay from hay nets, how that can jar their neck, and not putting the feed on the ground or the hay close to the ground can also really increase tension in the neck and alter the chewing dynamic of the horse as well, because he's anatomically designed to put his head on the ground to chew. He's not designed to chew from chest height, which you see on the picture on the right hand side. This is how we keep our horses. We put them in stalls, we clip them, we blanket them, we turn heaters on, we kind of take away all of the normal things that will happen in winter. It is very normal for horses to go through a seasonal weight fluctuation throughout the winter. For them to lose a little bit of weight, for them to gain a little bit of weight in the spring. I mean, this is normal, but unfortunately, we have completely taken away that seasonal fluctuation, and so sometimes our horses just tend to get fatter and fatter. But in the wintertime, horses decrease their feed intake in cold and windy weather because they're seeking out shelter. And most of our horses are probably going to be in stalls, but if they're outside, snow accumulation greater than 7 inches covers grass and decreases the intake of pasture. Now, the pasture is obviously not actively growing, but it is fiber for them to chew on. This decreases grazing time by 24% and decreases intake by 22%. So it's decreasing their fiber intake by about a quarter. Pouring through the deep snow to get grass also uses a lot of energy. So horses that are outside in the wintertime that are not being fed a lot more hay, it's cold, it's windy, it's snowy, will burn a lot more calories and they will lose a considerable amount of weight. So if you have farmers or folks that don't bring their horses in, just make sure that they are increasing their hay during that really cold weather. Now, an absolute bare minimum to keep the horse's digestive system functioning is 1% of body weight, but the horse will definitely lose weight and probably be unhealthy at that small amount. I generally recommend anywhere between 1.5 to 2.5% of body weight as a normal amount of hay that a horse is going to eat. That's kind of the bell curve. Anywhere in between there is normal. And I really don't, unless you've got a horse on a weight loss program, I really don't like to feed any less than 1.5% of body weight. So we also have to think about, there are these terms we use called the lower critical temperature, or LCT, is the temperature below which, so when an animal is just standing there, they're creating internal heat from what they've eaten, from muscular function. They're creating internal heat, and we call that metabolic heat production. And the lower critical temperature is the temperature below which metabolic heat production must be increased to just maintain their body temperatures. They can't just stand there and do nothing and maintain body temperature. So below 41 degrees Fahrenheit for a horse like a thoroughbred with a really thin coat, anything below 41 degrees Fahrenheit outside temperature, and the horse is going to have to actively try and keep warm. So they're going to burn additional calories and they won't be at maintenance anymore. They'll be in a negative energy balance. Horses with thicker coats, it's going to be less than 5 degrees Fahrenheit. If the temperatures get less than that, they are going to have to burn calories that might be breaking down their own muscle tissue to stay warm. Younger horses have a different range, a kind of narrower range. It's between 12 degrees Fahrenheit and 32 degrees Fahrenheit. For each decrease in coldness 1 degree below the critical temperature, there is a considerable increase in energy requirements just to maintain a healthy body temperature. So if the temperature outside is, let's say we're talking about a horse with a thin coat and it's 41 degrees Fahrenheit or 42 degrees Fahrenheit. Let's say it's 42 degrees Fahrenheit. Then we're not below that lower critical temperature. So the energy requirement per day is not it's not above maintenance, it's maintenance. And so they don't need to increase their feed intake if it's above that 41 degrees Fahrenheit, just to maintain body temperature. But if we're, let's say for that horse with a thin coat, it's 31 degrees Fahrenheit outside, then the digestible energy requirements increase by about 2 megacalories per day, which means they're going to have to eat an extra 2 pounds of feed a day. Most of our hays probably run around our local hays, or our lesser quality hays are going to run anywhere from 0.7 to 0.8 megacalories per pound, but a good quality grass hay or an alfalfa might run 1 to 1.1 megacalories per pound. So we're in the range of anywhere from 2 to 3.5 additional pounds of hay or concentrate that you would have to feed a day in order to account for the additional energy that's being lost because it's cold. 20 degrees below that lower critical temperature, and we're looking at an increase in 4 megacalories per day or 4 additional pounds of really good hay or feed. 30 degrees, we're increasing by about 6 pounds, and 40 degrees below that lower critical temperature. So that would be if it's 0 degrees Fahrenheit, because you remember 41 for that thin coated horse. So if we're looking at, well, 1 degree Fahrenheit, I guess, then we're increasing our energy requirements over and above maintenance. This isn't just 8 megacalories a day. This is over and above their maintenance. So we're already feeding the horse, 20 pounds of hay a day. Now we've got to add another 8 pounds of really good quality hay. Now we're going to get to a point where the horse just physically cannot eat enough to maintain their body temperature, especially if we start to add wind to the equation. So let's say the average temperature outside is 32 degrees Fahrenheit. If you add 10 to 15 mile-an-hour winds, just the wind itself increases the energy requirements by 4 to 8 megacalories per day, which is about 4 to 8 pounds of hay, good hay. 32 degrees Fahrenheit, but it's raining. It's cold rain outside. Okay, it's that sleety, freezing rain. It's going to increase the energy requirements by about 6 pounds of good hay a day. 32 degrees outside and it's raining, sleety, awful rain, and it's windy. And now we've increased over and above maintenance 10 to 14 pounds. So let's say we're already feeding 20 pounds of hay a day. Now you've got to feed another 14 pounds. So now we're looking at feeding 34 pounds of hay per day. And this is where we start to get into that range of it's too much. The horse just can't physically eat enough calories when it's just hay. So now we look at adding more energy dense calorie sources like oil, because it's 4 times more energy dense than any other any other grain. The benefit to the hay, adding hay first, is that the bacteria in the hindgut, as they're breaking down that fiber, they're creating heat. So that's helping to keep the horse warm, and it's giving the horse extra calories um, to kind of metabolize and use that energy to create heat. So we always want to start with adding more hay first, but then we get to a point where we also might have to add additional calories. It's always really critical when we're adding hay to the diet that we are trying to mimic grazing behavior. So, it's cold, it's windy, it's wet. We don't want to be out there 5 or 6 times a day putting hay out. So using slow feeders can protect that hay. It can keep it out of the snow and the rain. And it also will extend mealtime. Can be a little bit daunting to think about how much additional hay do I need over the winter when there's no grass outside and they're stuck in a stall, if you're lucky enough to have stalls to put them in, or you're throwing hay outside. So this is assuming that the horses are coming into stalls and we don't have that additional energy usage, and I've conservatively gone with the 1.5% of body weight, but over about a 5-month window. So if we think about, November, December, January, February, March, taking into account kind of the rain and then the winter and then the rainy kind of end of winter, we've got about 150 days. At 15 pounds of hay over 150 days works out to be 2,250 pounds, or a little over a ton of hay per horse. If we assume that a local bale of hay is about 40 pounds, then we're looking at about 60 bales of hay for one horse for that 5 months of winter. Now, okay, you've got 10 horses, so now we're looking at 600 bales, and you're thinking, oh my God, how am I going to store all of that? So certainly, hay is the most critical part of the horse's diet. It is the most critical ingredient that we need to add plenty of in the wintertime, but it can also be daunting. How do I get that much hay? Just looking at what else can we do. Okay, this horse is doing no exercise, eating 15 pounds of grass hay, and we're giving it 2 ounces of DAC orange. And right now the diet is balanced, but I don't have I don't have over a ton of hay for this horse. I don't have storage for that much hay. So what else can I add? And we can add other hay alternatives, Timothy pellets, alfalfa pellets, cubes, beet pulp, shreds, soy hulls. These are all going to be higher in calories than your local grass hay. These are all low sugar and starch alternatives, but also note that every time you decrease the fiber length, you speed up the time it takes for them to eat that fiber, and so we have more idle time where they're just standing around eating nothing. The more long stem hay that you can feed, the better, but I understand that sometimes practicality, I just don't have the area to store it, or in the wintertime, it's really hard to lug hay around. I get a lot of snow in my area, so I want to rely on some more pelleted or cubed forages. That's okay, but you need to try. I try with most horses to feed at least 50% of the fiber in a long stem fiber. There are some horses, like horses with really poor teeth, or horses where I'm really sensitive about sugars and starches and I just can't find a low sugar hay, that I might do 100% pelleted or cubed forage, but the maintenance, it becomes very intensive at that point. So we've got a 1,000-pound horse, again, doing no work. We've got where we can afford 10 pounds of hay to feed it a day, and so we throw in 5 pounds of Timothy pellets and the 2 ounces of DAC orange, and we're still ideal. Now, water is something that is often overlooked because it's cold. My horse doesn't drink a lot of water in the wintertime. That's okay. But the other thing that occurs in the colder months is impaction colic. The rise of impaction colic goes through the roof, and that's because the horse is adjusting to less water intake. And so we need to do everything we can to increase their hydration of the gut. Horse at maintenance during really cold weather will drink anywhere from 5 to 15 gallons of water a day. Now, that's a pretty wide range, so it's very important that you know what is normal for your horse. So right now would be a really good time for you to encourage your clients, your pony club kids, your 4-H kids to get a good estimate of how much is my horse drinking now, so that we can monitor daily whether it goes down, whether it goes up. Maybe they can associate that with, I did a little extra riding, it was cold, it went down. It's very good to know what is normal for your horse. Yearlings, anywhere from 4 to 5 gallons of water a day. Exercising horses. Now, we do still ride our horses in the wintertime, and we don't notice the sweat as much because it evaporates very quickly because the air is very dry. But they are still sweating, and so they're losing electrolytes. So it is important that if we're riding our horses in the winter, that we're still replacing electrolytes. Pregnancy, anywhere from 5 to 15 gallons of water, and a lactating mare. I mean, what is milk? It's primarily water. So her water intake significantly increases. Now, most of our mares aren't going to be heavily lactating through the early part of winter, but maybe you've got early foalers that are going to come in January. How can you tell if your horse is not drinking enough water? Again, do these tests now so that you know what is normal for your horse, and then when you think your horse might be dehydrated and you do these tests, then you know what the baseline is. So first thing is you can pull up the top lip of the horse and take your thumb and press it on their gum. And if the color returns within 2 seconds, the horse is hydrated. If it takes 3 seconds or more, then the horse is dehydrated. Then the skin pinch test, you kind of take that triangle of skin right above the shoulder there, and you pinch it, make a tent, pull it up, and then release it. And if it releases within a second and it just snaps back to normal, then the horse is hydrated. If it kind of slowly goes back within 2 to 4 seconds, we've got mild dehydration. If it takes 4 seconds or more, the horse is moderately to highly dehydrated, and you should probably call the veterinarian at that point. The other thing that we always struggle with in the wintertime is weight gain. And so I get to the end of winter and people are asking me, my horse really lost a lot of weight over the wintertime, or he's losing weight during the wintertime. How do I correct that? And during the winter, as we've seen, it's cold. They're exerting burning a lot of extra energy just to stay warm. So during the colder months, it's a really hard time to get horses to gain weight. So we try to get them to gain weight prior to. We know that for a 1,000-pound horse, or an average size horse, to gain a body condition score, it's going to take 40 to 45 pounds of gain. So now, and we also know that it takes about 60 days to do that. So we're in October. So October, November, there's your 2 months before it gets really, really cold. We're kind of getting into October now. What is it? October 7th. So if you don't get this plan implemented for another week, we're halfway into October, so we're into December. We've still got enough time to get some weight on these horses so that they're not coming out the other side of winter emaciated, knowing that most horses will lose a little bit of weight over winter, and that's fine. But if your horse is already thin going into the winter, then it can become a real problem. So what's it going to take? Most of you have seen this before, but a little recap, because everybody has their own way that they like to put weight on horses. Oats, for example, the calorie content of oats is 1.5 megacals per pound. Rice bran, 1.5 megacals per pound. So if you think back to when I was saying how you would have to feed an extra 3-4 pounds of hay or grain per day, because that was based on the hay having an energy content of 1 megacal per pound. So if we were having to feed 4 pounds of hay, we'd be looking at, let's say, 2.5 pounds of oats, for example, to give you that calorie content. But oats and rice bran have the same calorie content, but the main difference is rice bran gets its calories primarily from fat and oats more from starch. Beet pulp is slightly less, not much, but slightly less, and this is dry, non-molassed beet pulp. Alfalfa hay, just slightly lower as well. We're looking at about 1.1 megacals per pound. But if you look at fat or oil, it's so energy dense. It's about 4.6 megacals per pound. So the calorie density is significant. So if we know that it's going to take a certain amount of additional calories to put on that 40 to 45 pounds of gain, and we've got 60 days to do it, I've calculated that you would have to feed about 4.5 pounds a day of oats or rice bran on top of what is currently maintaining them. If you chose to use beet pulp, that's going to be 5 pounds of dry, non-molasses beet pulp. Now, you're going to wet that, and most people do like a 2-to-1, maybe even 3-to-1 water to beet pulp ratio. So we're looking at 10 to 15 pounds of water beet pulp slurry. Alfalfa hay, if that's your choice for putting weight on your horse, then we're looking at 6 pounds of additional alfalfa hay because it's so less calorie dense. But oil is my go-to because a little over 2 measuring cups, which is about 1.5 pounds of fat, is going to give you those calories. It's not going to take a lot of extra time for the horse to consume that. So if you've got horses in a herd eating together, and you worry about the one horse that eats really slowly, how can I feed him more because he takes so much time and the other horses are picking on him? Oil is the best way to go because it doesn't take any extra mouthfuls. It's just kind of all mixed in there. Most horses, it's very palatable. The correct oils will also increase your omega-3 fatty acid ratio, which we'll touch on. And then some oils, like the DAC oil, will also have natural vitamin E, which is also very critical for thin horses and horses trying to gain weight. So we'll talk about some of the oils that compete with the DAC oil. So we've got coca soya oil, wheat germ oil. These are oils that the sales reps have told me that out there, and health E oil. Now these ones confuse me a lot. So there's health E oil and there's a healthy E oil. And I'm sure if those two companies got together that they would argue that the names are too similar and one would have to give their name up. But anyway, they're two different products. The coca soya oil has no significant vitamin E and no marine-based omega-3 fatty acids. It's literally soybean oil with a little bit of coconut oil. Health E oil has natural vitamin E, 1,000 IUs per pound, but it has no marine-based omega-3 fatty acids. This healthy E oil has 250 IUs of natural vitamin E per pound and no marine-based omega-3s. And then the wheat germ oil is 2,400 IUs of vitamin E, natural vitamin E per pound, but no marine-based omega-3s. And when I say marine-based omega-3s, flax, chia, hemp, all of those, they are not very available to the horse. The omega-3s that are most available to the horse come from the marine, either algae or fish sources. So we do put fish oil in the DAC oil. This is a competitive vitamin E supplement, Elevate. You've probably all have heard of that. It's a powdered natural vitamin E supplement. It's not as concentrated as the DAC supplement. Our little 5-gram scoop, I think, is 2,000 IUs. Their scoop is only 1,000 IUs. Ours works out to be a lot more cost competitive. And our DAC oil also has 4,000 IUs per pound. So if we're feeding significant amounts of oil, i.e. the 2 measuring cups, we're looking at 1.5 pounds. So we're getting 6,000 IUs of natural vitamin E when you feed 2 measuring cups of DAC oil. That's significant. Typically, most of our clients don't feed that much. They're anywhere from 1 to 4 ounces for a maintenance horse if we're just trying to maintain their body weight, or 5 to 8 ounces for a horse that might be doing heavier exercise or lactating. It's a blend of canola oil, flaxseed oil, wheat germ oil, fish oil, which is really driving up the omega-3 fatty acid DHA, some rice oil, D-alpha tocopherol acetate, which is the source of natural vitamin E, and then citric acid, which is vitamin C, which is a natural preservative, and then natural and artificial flavor. That's a caramel flavor that is put into the product. Several studies have shown that by adding fat to the oil, it also helps decrease the sugars and starches. And we know that we can alter a horse's behavior when you feed them high amounts of sugars and starches, that when we feed high fat diets, a calmer demeanor has been recorded in stress tests on horses. So several years ago, I came up with this chart and compared all of the different oils. And I looked at different criteria that I rank fat supplements or oil supplements by. So I mentioned omega-3 fatty acids, and there are 3 different omega-3 fatty acids. There's alpha-linolenic acid, which is ALA, that you're going to primarily get from chia and flax and hemp and your plant-based sources. Then we have DHA, docosahexaenoic acid, and EPA, eicosapentaenoic acid. Now, these two convert back and forth between each other, and these are what are directly used by the body. ALA has to go through a conversion process to turn into DHA in order to then be used by the body. So if a supplement has a whole boatload of ALA, it really means nothing to me, because the conversion that it has to go through to turn it into DHA is very, very poor. Less than 1% of this will get turned into this. So we can go down the list here and see, oh, wild gold camelina oil. That's fantastic. They're going to show an omega-3 fatty acid content is very high at 31.2%, but that's not usable. Only 1% of that will be actually used and turned into DHA and EPA and be used by the body. So I'd rather see something like DAC oil, which has 1.2% DHA, is much more effective than something that's got significantly more of the ALA, which isn't used by the horse. So if we go down the list, and if we're purchasing the oil supplement for the omega-3 fatty acid content, then I want you to look and see if there's any DHA. Is there a fish oil in the supplement? Contact the competitor and say, what is the DHA content of your oil? At Equine Omega Complete, 0.93. EO3, which is the KER fish oil supplement, has 10%. Well Pride is a fish oil, 12%. The DAC oil, which I don't even advertise the DAC oil as an omega-3 fatty acid supplement, but look, it is significantly better than a lot of oils that, like Equine Omega Complete, it's in the name that they're calling it an omega-3 fatty acid supplement when really it's not. And then EPA, obviously that's beneficial as well. The other thing we like to look at is the linoleic acid, which is the omega-6 fatty acids. Now, the omega-6 fatty acids are essential. It means your horse needs to consume them, but we know that they are part of the pro-inflammatory response in the horse, and the horse gets plenty of them in their diet anyway. So we don't want to feed a lot of those to horses. They can increase inflammation. They can decrease the horse's ability to recover from heavy exercise. So if we look at something like the Healthy E oil, it's got 50% omega-6s. The Health E oil, 50% omega-6s. Equine Omega Complete, 50% omega-6s. So that really negates anything else that they've got in it. Wheat germ oil had 42.3. The Comega Supreme. I think that's more of a coconut oil thing. That had, oh shoot, nearly 40% omega-3s. Healthy Coat, 50% omega-6s. And then that Wild Gold Camelina also had 23% omega-6 fatty acids. So what else am I going to look at? Well, we've determined that the DAC oil has omega-6, it has vitamin E, it has natural vitamin E. So I'm going to look for that. It's not just inherently in oils, you have to add it to the blend. So we have 4,000 IUs of natural vitamin E. Sure, the Equine Omega Complete has 5,700 IUs of omega-3 natural vitamin E, but to me, that is outweighed by the large quantity of omega-6 fatty acids. There's been a question to comment on the KPP, the Kentucky Performance Products oil. Okay, it's got a high. This is a fish oil based supplement. It's got no natural vitamin E in it, so if you're feeding it just for omega-3s, then it's fine. But it will also be very unpalatable, so you're not going to be able to feed a horse 2 cups of this a day for significant weight gain. It's got no natural vitamin E, and it's also not NASC approved. So the final thing that I look at in any supplement that I am going to feed is it NASC approved? Yes or no? And for me, I really, really want to see the NASC accreditation, and what that means to consumers is an added level of quality control. It means that I can send off any one of these products that have the NASC certification. So really, there's only 4 of them. And I can be pretty guaranteed that the values are going to come back exactly as what's written on the label. Everything else does not go through the same rigorous quality control testing. So it would not be surprising if I sent Healthy E oil off to the lab and it came back at 1% ALA, because there's just no one testing that. So I want to see the NASC accreditation. I want to see vitamin E in the oil, because I know that thin horses that we're feeding large quantities of oil, that we need to feed large quantities of oil to, are also going to be deficient in natural vitamin E. And I'd rather not see a really high omega-6 fatty acid value. So I think that the DAC oil for me checks all of the boxes. I get also asked a lot of questions about the difference between bloom and oil, and for weight gain, which one should I use? I always go with oil for significant weight gain, but okay, then when or why do I feed a bloom? So the bloom is a protein fatty acid supplement. It's got a whole slew of different amino acids. For me, it's going to really correct poor hair coat and add really nice quality hair and a little extra top line. If we look at the more powdered solid fat supplements that aren't oil, we're looking at rice bran as 20% fat, bloom is 32% fat, oil being a liquid is 98% fat. Something like Neutrina Empower Boost is 22% fat, Amplify Nugget is 30% fat, Maxi Glow, another rice bran, is 18% fat. So the DAC Bloom of all of these powdered solid supplements is 32% fat, which is going to help with a weight gain, but it's not going to compete with oil at 99, 98% fat. When I talk about bloom and I talk about hair quality, you can see on the picture on the right hand side that we've got this fatty layer underneath, then we've got the blood vessels, and you can go all the way to the outside and you can see that top layer is the skin, and then under that we've got nerves, and we've got little what we call erectopili muscles. That's what makes hair stand up and lay down, stand up and lay down. And then under that kind of skin layer, then we have on the external surface of the hair shaft, we have the sebaceous gland, and that's a fat gland, and that will fill with oil, and it will actually lubricate all the way up the hair shaft and coat it with this thin layer of fat. And then with our horses that are nice and clean, and have a healthy sebaceous gland and that are super, super shiny, it's the light reflecting off that oil that's on the outside of the hair shaft. That is what is actually making that horse shine and have that really glossy coat, is that sebaceous gland. So it's really important that if you want your horse to be really shiny, that they actually do get fat in their diet. You know, you've certainly seen quarter horses have that really nice thin coat, some thoroughbreds as well. You can literally see water bead off them sometimes. When they're in peak condition and their hair coat is super healthy, and that sebaceous gland is working, it's really coating that hair shaft, and they're super, super shiny. Now, the bloom will help with that, but it will also help with feeding from this blood vessel level a damaged hair. And it grows from down here from the hair follicle, and that's where the blood vessels go in. And so adding things like biotin and zinc, copper, methionine, that's going to feed the hair. So as it grows, any damage, breaking, dull, then that is going to correct that from under the surface so that then when that hair grows out, it's going to be really, really healthy and strong. That's primarily what the bloom is going to do. It's going to correct poor hair coat. What does biotin do? We talk about biotin a lot in a hoof supplement, but hoof is just hard hair. So what does biotin do for the hair coat? And it's really, really important in skin integrity. And biotin deficiency is actually pretty rare in horses because the bacteria in the hindgut make biotin. It's a B vitamin. But biotin deficiencies, you might see dry, irritated skin, brittle hair or hair loss, lack of energy, digestive and intestinal tract issues. Because remember that epithelial tissue, which is your skin, is also lining your intestinal wall. And any of you that have dogs, it's the same thing. If they have a biotin deficiency, then their skin might be irritated. Uh, Dogs that have really dry, flaky skin might benefit from a biotin supplement or a supplement that has biotin in it. Actually, funnily enough, it also is needed. It helps in an enzymatic reaction that is needed to make fatty acids, proteins, and energy. So biotin works in that pathway. When we eat foods that are sources of fats and proteins and carbohydrates, biotin must be present in order to convert and use those macronutrients. Um, Sometimes it's nicknamed the vitamin H, and that's mainly in people, coming from hair and skin, really. As I mentioned, a lot of these are more in small animals, but hair loss, scaly red rash around the eyes, nose, and mouth, or even around the genital area on our pets, may be a sign of biotin deficiency. Actually, looking at research in dogs, looking at their fur and skin coat, um, treatment with about 5 milligrams of biotin per 10 kilograms of body weight, so that's 20 pounds, for 3 to 5 weeks, increased their skin and coat quality. In horses, we recommend feeding about 20 milligrams of biotin per day to increase hoof health and coat health. But it takes a long time to see it in the hooves. Zinc is also a really important ingredient in hoof and hair quality, and it's actually been used for over 3,500 years. If you look back at Egyptian records, medical records, it was used as a topical therapy. And if you look at, so remember I showed you the pictures of the hair follicles. So this is the top layer of skin, and then the hair is coming down and kind of right about where that zinc follicle is. Then that's where the hair uh, follicle is. And then below that, we have, so all in this layer here, that between kind of the tissue and the outer layer of skin that will flake off, 20% of the body's zinc stores are in the outer layer of skin. So zinc is absolutely critical for skin and hair and intestinal tract health. Um, Zinc concentrations tend to be greater in tissues where we slough off a lot of cells. So on the kind of on the scalp, on the skin where it will flake off. Also in highly keratinized areas, so the hooves on dogs and cattle and horses, on the nose, also in the tongue. These are high pressure areas where the skin can be thicker. And we also know that certain diseases of the skin really respond well to topical or oral zinc, and not just zinc, but the correct form of zinc that they're actually going to be able to utilize. So this is where we again talk about chelated minerals that are really bioavailable and have a longer storage time in the body. They stay in the body longer and can be utilized. Wound healing, maintaining health and integrity of the skin, because you saw that, all of so much zinc sitting in that external layer of skin. It's an antioxidant. It helps with the immune system, antiviral. So this was some interesting work looking at dogs. And I know we're equine nutrition, but sometimes we have to extrapolate and take some really neat work from other animals, and we can look at that and apply that to horses. So 32 black Labrador retriever dogs from 1 to 10 years old. And the standard diet was 10 milligrams of zinc and some omega-3 fatty acid. And then the treatment group had 3 times the amount of zinc, as well as increased omega-3 fatty acids. And what did that do to the animals? It definitely increased the amount of zinc in that surface layer of the skin and increased skin quality. This was some research looking at the type of zinc. So we use zinc, Zinpro Performance Minerals in our Bloom and in our Faria's Foundation formula. And that is a chelated form of zinc that we use. And so this was looking at fur density in Arctic blue foxes, and the animals that were fed with the Avela zinc, the Zinpro Avela zinc, had significantly higher fur density than the animals that were fed a lower quality zinc. Looking at skin integrity, this dog had lesions on its head and on its nose and around its ears. Previous therapeutic regimes had not taken these plaques off. Just by changing the diet and adding the highly bioavailable source of zinc, 10 weeks later, we take the dog at the top with all of these kind of plaque psoriasis, and we've significantly decreased them, and the hair's growing back. We've all had horses that we've seen similar skin disorders that don't seem to be explainable, and nothing seems to work. High levels of zinc that are in something like the Bloom will really help with that skin integrity. So with that, we've talked about feeding horses, getting them ready for wintertime, the benefits of the Bloom and the oil. Any questions?